on a door over here. I don't know if that's the police officers who are trying to make entrance. No, it doesn't appear that way. It's hard to see, I know, because it's dark, but basically, for some reason, some of the crowd went into a house here. You can see a yellow light. But it doesn't look like, I think at this point what they're trying to do is look for somebody, maybe.
Maybe looking for one of those suspects. Okay, Jeff.
Well, as we leave you, things are relatively quiet there, right?
Well, they are there. But
well, except for we just took another rock. So, I mean, yeah, and another one.
Are you getting hit?
No, I haven't gotten hit yet, no. But you're basically just, what you do when you're not on the air is you stand, you kind of squat down, you stand low, and you don't give them a big target. Yeah, okay.
Maybe we'll get off you, Jeff, and give you a chance to regroup a little bit, all right?
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Now we're back live on, you're seeing from Newscopter 7, a shot of another fire.
We're waiting for Mayor Bradley, who was supposed to be making a statement to the city at 10 o'clock. It's about 12 after 10 right now. He is going to make an appeal for calm, we assume, sometime soon. This is Ann Martin and Paul Moyer. We've been on the air since about just before 7.
About 6:45. Have we got Rick Romero someplace?
We're not on at this point.
All right, Rick Romero, I don't know where you are, but if you're with us, if you have something to tell us, do it. Okay, we lost Rick Romero. All right. You see that sign? You see that sign? Vote yes on Prop F. One wonders what effect all of this is going to have on that very important proposition.
This is tape from downtown where there has been a loss of control downtown too. A lot of disruption, some violence, fires being set. We're looking at a young man being arrested there. And the police have been turned out in riot gear this evening, protecting Parker Center, protecting City Hall, taking gangs away who are trying to break down the doors and windows at the LA Times building. They assaulted the state office building. They've been setting fires to palm trees. It's been a terrible scene downtown.
Well, it all started with a rather peaceful demonstration that just got out of hand. And
early this afternoon. They showed up early this afternoon.
And we're assuming that most of this damage was done by people other than the original band of... Rick Romero, are you with us now?
Yes, Paul, I'm right here. I'm actually at about Union Station, which is on Alameda right now. We've kind of moved back a ways from some of the action that was going on. Let me explain the tape that you're seeing right now. Earlier on, you saw out in front of Parker Center, that crowd moved on, and as they moved on, they went down the streets, and they took up, well, as you see there, a car. They overturned that car and set it on fire. They took newspaper racks, threw them into windows, storefront windows. Across the street from that particular car is the state office building. We'll give you a shot of that shortly. There you can see some broken windows. Inside, that's the LA Times building. But inside the state office building, they set some of that on fire, and it was a smoldering fire. Fortunately, they were able to put that out rather quickly. There you can see the fire department checking to make sure there weren't any bodies inside that car. Fortunately, there were no bodies inside. There you see the state office building. They've been breaking down windows. Now, one of the reasons that we moved from the area is that they started throwing eggs at us. They threw punches at us. Some of the people there have just really gotten out of hand, and as far as control is concerned, there doesn't appear to be much. A helicopter came in, a police helicopter, flashed its light over the scene, and that helped to get the crowd dispersed. And good reason, because there was a school bus that was parked there. Nobody was inside, but they were trying to overturn that as well. Now you see, of course, a picture live from Newscopter 7, and I'll leave it with you, Paul and Ann, to talk about that.
One thing I want to say, well, I'll say it after we go to Jeff Michael at Foothill Division. Jeff, you got some more?
Yeah, basically, Paul, the helicopters come in here, but we've been taking more rocks, and I'll show you what's happened. Another photographer from one of the other stations here took 2 rocks, and basically what happened?
Well, when the officers started moving toward the crowd, we moved with them, and I guess I caught a random rock. I got hit in the shin, and about 3 minutes later, I caught another one about 2 inches below it.
You're all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
What they're doing now is they've pushed back even further by bringing the helicopter in. They've been able to isolate some of the areas where the rocks have come from, and as soon as the light hits the people that are throwing the rocks, then they go ahead and they take off. we've pushed this perimeter now down, I'd say, another good 3 to 4 blocks. They had just cordoned off the area around the Foothill Division here at Osborne near San Fernando, but now this area has become, well, I'd say, a good 6 to 8 square blocks, just keeping people out of the way and dispersing the crowd. So if there is going to be any problem, if there is going to be any violence out here, it is apparently not going to be right in front of the Foothill Station as it was earlier tonight when 4 or 5 shots were fired.
Jeff, thank you. We are trying to make sense out of a very chaotic situation. I know that we are switching back and forth to various reporters at different locations who are moving all the time. That's their job. We're doing the best we can. Things are breaking out just about as fast as we can get to them, probably quicker. We are told the mayor will be on the air about 10:15 tonight, a message of calm for the city of Los Angeles, which greatly needs it. Several Los Angeles Unified School District campuses will be closed tomorrow due to the rioting sparked by the innocent verdicts handed down in the Rodney King beating trial. Superintendent William Anton has called for the closure of all schools and offices tomorrow within the area of Adams Boulevard to the north, Imperial Highway to the south, La Cienega Boulevard on the west, and Alameda Street on the east. We cannot immediately say how many elementary or junior high or high schools would be affected by the superintendent's order. We assume that that order will go through, and that is from the superintendent of schools, William Anton.
Well, it's about time after 3 hours that we say that this is Eyewitness News, special coverage of what has turned into an extraordinary night in Los Angeles. It was this afternoon that the jury acquitted the 4 white police officers of felony assault in the videotaped beating of the black motorist Rodney King, and it was not too long after those verdicts were read that violence and fires erupted in Los Angeles, even as leaders of the city appealed that everybody should stay calm. We have seen looting, we've seen street violence, we've seen fires, building fires, tree fires, car fires breaking out predominantly in black South Central Los Angeles, but also we've seen problems in the city center at Parker Center and around the City Hall. And we've also had problems, shots being fired, in a very tense situation out in the Foothill Division. The National Guard has been authorized, but so far we have not seen any National Guards men called in. We do have a state of emergency called by the mayor and supported by the governor of California, and we've had many appeals for calm, and yet the fires keep breaking out. We are told the National Guard is on its way. We know of at least one Guard unit, certainly more locally here, that are just standing by waiting for the word. Many of these fires, according to the Los Angeles fire people we have talked to tonight, are just burning unattended, simply because A, they haven't got enough people to get to all of them at the same time, B, the danger factor. And when we have seen pictures of firemen getting to the scene and throwing water on these fires, they are surrounded by a phalanx of policemen. They have to be protected. And we have seen building after building, much as we're looking at right now, go up in flames and become smoldering embers without any firemen throwing a drop of water on them, certainly because they can't get there to do it. The count of buildings lost tonight is going to have to top 2 dozen. Well, I think it has already. It must have, because there's one, the one that's just beyond it that we just came off of, was at least a double. I mean, there could be 6 in that row right there. And we have seen repetitions of that site for the last 2 hours. We have yet to hear a definitive word from the LAPD on why, when we initially started covering this, and it started at one intersection in South Central Los Angeles, they waited so long to move in and do anything. That is not casting judgment at all. We are going to wait and see what their plan was and how they carried it out. The people of Los Angeles deserve that explanation, and they will get it. Captain Ron is
beneath us.
You're talking about looting. Go ahead. We're with you, Ron.
Okay, we're right back here at, let's see, this is Vermont and Manchester, and we're looking just actually east of the fires that we've gone, and we've got some very heavy looting going on in this store. It's the ABC liquor store, and it's a very large store. You can see an awful lot of cars down there and an awful lot of people walking in and out at will, looting this store. Now, we just have been over this scene just for a couple of minutes, and it's very apparent to us that these people have been here a long time. This looting has been going on a long time. We've been concentrating on some of the fires, and we've missed this looting that we're seeing right now.
That is an amazing scene. It's like somebody said, we're holding a sale. Get your bags and come on in. That's a lot of people running out of there.
We're actually seeing some of the people here that have shopping carts that are taking their merchandise out of the store and loading up their car with at this time.
Is that broken glass, all that litter in the front there that we see in front of the doorway?
You know, I don't think it's broken glass. I think it's just debris and garbage as they come out. Maybe some of the packaging of the merchandise that they're taking out is just thrown out at that point.
We've been asked to go to Henry Alfaro. And Henry Alfaro was at the command post at 54th and Arlington, and that was the spot where the police had gathered together prior to heading out to the different fire scenes. Let's go to Henry now. He's got a police officer for us. Go ahead, Henry.
Well, standing with me right now is Captain Sandy Wasson from the Los Angeles Police Department. He's been here at the command post for several hours now. And Captain, what is the latest? I know we see a lot of people coming in here, but the deployment procedure, what are the plans?
Well, we've activated the emergency command vehicles that you see behind me, and we're dispatching the people from there. What we're doing right now is becoming better organized, getting better information, and becoming better coordinated. As you can see, the cars and the ambulances that are going out now, we're trying to respond to the most important calls for service right away.
How widespread is the looting and the fires and the problems?
Well, the problem is it's very sporadic. It's not all concentrated in one area. Something might pop up in one particular area.
His status of his condition is not yet known, but we are transporting him emergency to Cedars-Sinai.
Where was he hit?
It looks like he took possibly a shot to the face. So it is a serious nature, but we do not know the
Was he walking, or was he knocked unconscious by the bullet?
We don't know exactly how the firefighter took the round, but he has been transported to the hospital as we speak.
We have reports that one fire truck was firebombed. Are there any other fire vehicles that are out of order due to tonight's violence?
A lot of our vehicles were the victims of violence that were the targets of rocks and bottles, and by the few that chose to show that violence, unnecessary violence, toward the fire department. The people in the community, the people who are showing violence toward the fire department, have to realize that these men and women, firefighters and paramedics, that are putting their lives on the line are there in their community to save them from this destruction.
That's right, and they work side by side. African-American firefighters are a major force in Los Angeles. They're working side by side with no regard for race tonight or any other night for that matter. In the line of work that they do, that just cannot be a factor. It's really tragic to see that they become victims on a night like tonight.
Steve, can you tell us, we see such major conflagrations there. Are these fires spreading?
It looks, as I can see your live coverage now by Chopper 2, what the fire department will do in a case like this in Tactical Alert is that they will do their best with the resources available to get to the exposures, as we call them. For example, that one-story commercial there with the words Dory to it, you can see firefighters with heavy streams through the front doors of it. There'll probably be firefighters in the occupancies next door to protect that structure from the oncoming fire. You can see heavy streams now being applied. That water, heavy streams are going into the fire now to try and get a knockdown on it. But as you can see, in the best of times, if this was not a violent structure fire, this would take the manpower of what we call a major emergency structure fire. Here, as you can see, with resources so thin, 2 or 3 companies are handling this fire. We're in non-stressful conditions. Fire companies 15, 16, 20 strong would be handling this blaze.
And are there some fires right now, Steve, that you're not fighting simply because you're afraid to send people into the neighborhood?
There are some areas in that community in which we are not able to get into because of the seriousness of the automatic firing and semi-automatic weapons that are being used in the area, that the police department has determined that we cannot get to due to the seriousness of the nature.
Can you see this fire on our screen right there?
I can, yes.
Now, that building next to the fire, is that in danger of going up?
Yes, it looks like it is in serious danger, specifically if there are windows on that other side. I can't see now as the chopper goes around, but that building is in serious...
Do you know what building that is?
I can't see it right now, Chris. I don't know the location of that fire. We're fighting well over 13, 14 major structure fires as we speak.
Can you tell us how many of the fires are concentrated in South Central LA versus other parts of our city? You said you've had over 130 incidences reported since about 7:30 tonight. Can you give us an idea of what parts of the city, other than South Central, we're talking about?
The downtown area, that the Children's Museum, as the police were dispersing the crowd around the Parker Center, the small rubbish fires and vegetation fires were popping up around the Children's Museum. There had been a report that the Children's Museum was on fire. It was just basically the vegetation and trees around the museum, but firefighter units were able to be deployed there quickly and get a quick knockdown and move on to the other fires that were being reported in the downtown area. The downtown area is not as inundated with major structure fires as the South Central area is right now.
Did you do any counseling for firefighters today to get them prepared for what might happen tonight?
Firefighters, we were prepared with tactical alert procedures, which means that fire department, LA City Fire Department is constantly drilling with their heavy streams appliances and our firefighter tactics and strategy. A lot of our firefighter resources now, the personnel have been recalled, chief officers, and so they'll be able to send resources into this area. Chief Manning is here in headquarters along with his staff, and they are able to make the determinations on the strategy and tactics of fighting this fire.
What about fatalities?
Right at this time, Bree, I can't report on any fatalities that we have known. Of course, this is a senseless violence that is going on in the South Central, and we certainly hope that the good people in the community will continue to stay in their homes and allow the fire department to do their job and do their work without being affected by the individuals who are showing violence against the men and women that are risking their lives to save their community.
Steve, what
you think came out okay for you, and you're here with us now, but obviously this was not a very sensible thing that you did, and we would urge other people not to try to do the same.
Great pictures, nice job, lots of guts, and but be more careful in the future.
I sure will.
Okay.
There's another air picture you're looking at now from Sky 9. And David, what's new in Sky 9?
Well, you're looking at Slauson Boulevard, we believe, here, along a stretch of it. And again, you kind of have to study the map to make sure you're in the right place at the right time with these. But this is a gigantic fire that is burning right now. This is a new fire that has erupted in the past half hour or so. And there has been looting reported right here. This is another location where trucks and cars have been driven through plate glass windows again. We've seen that before earlier tonight. In this case, it's been told to us into the Pep Boys store where they cleaned out an auto parts location. This is a large warehouse that's on fire along the railroad tracks. I think you can see pretty well right there. This is arguably the largest single structure that's been on fire tonight. And there is no sign of any kind of firefighting equipment here. As you know, we've long since outstripped the ability of the fire department to continue to fight these fires. I'm going to go up the block here, just about 2 blocks from that fire, and you will see another large warehouse right here, right under us right here, that has just erupted. There it is, that has just broken out. And the traffic that you see is light. The pedestrian traffic is nil, and it is strictly an example of firebombing at its most efficient.
You know, David, this is the question that I was going to ask you before, and we had to break away from you. I don't know. I know that you're very far away. I was wondering if you had binoculars, because I was wondering if you've actually seen any of these fires set. If you've seen anybody approach a building and heave whatever it is that they're heaving into these buildings. Have you actually seen that?
Quite a few, Tony. We saw that as early as 6:30 p.m. this evening, when there would be gangs of younger people packed into pickup trucks, and they would be throwing, in some cases, 4 and 5 what appear to be firebomb Molotov cocktail type bottles into the front of storefront windows, and they're very efficient. They burst into flames immediately, and they got some big fires going real quickly that way. But yes, from our vantage point here, I don't know how many feet up we are, not too many, 200 feet maybe, you could see it quite clearly.
We've just been told that some firefighters had come under attack and have taken shelter in a building on West Vernon Street in the 900 block.
I'm not surprised, Jerry, because there has been sporadic gunfire reported even at our helicopter and the other helicopters. I'm even beginning to wonder if some of these buildings wouldn't contain toxic chemicals inside. I guess we just won't know that for a while. There's no way to report on what's inside these buildings, or even in many cases what location it is. But you can see the strength of the fire there to the left-hand side of that shot. We just got shot, yeah, got hit by bullet fire, by gunfire right there while we were reporting just at that moment.
The helicopter,
your helicopter
got hit. Yeah, I think that we're all right, though. We're going to have to check. It took at least 2 shots underneath.
Is that right? No one injured.
Nobody injured, and the helicopter seems to be functioning all right, but we're getting out of that area real quickly.
All right. Thank you. David was close to Slauson, where that major fire was burning, if you want to know the exact location. But the fires today, 89th Street, another one on Main Street. That was the big warehouse that went up. Another fire on Figueroa. It all started at Florence and Normandy. Another fire at on Pico, a big fire there. Some fires downtown and off the Hollywood Freeway. Another that Tony Guignard just reported on a few minutes ago at Harvard and Adams, not very far from the First AME Church.
We have joining us now, Jerry, Valerie Hopkins, another amateur photographer. I just hope other people don't follow suit. It makes me a little bit nervous, people trying to chronicle this themselves. We can do that a little bit better. But Valerie, can you tell us where you were and what you saw?
Yeah, I was down at Parker Center, and I witnessed the burning of a guard shack. They first attacked the guard shack, tipped it over, burned it, and started jumping up and down on it, waving the California flag. They ripped off the flagpole in the area.
Now, Valerie, were you there as one of the protesters, or you simply went down there because you wanted to photograph?
I went down there, I'm neutral. I went down there just to get some footage in hopes of being a cameraman someday.
Well, you've got some great pictures that we're looking at here of violence in that parking lot, I guess it was, wasn't it? It was a parking lot, was it not?
I don't think Valerie can hear you.
Correct.
Jerry. Was that, you
yes,
were in the parking lot?
Mm-hmm.
But as a young woman venturing down into a melee like this, once you got there, Valerie, what prevented you from turning on your heel? I have a feeling I'm saying this and Valerie can't hear a word that I'm saying. Can you hear me, Valerie?
Okay, go ahead. I can hear you now.
You're a young woman down in the middle of melee, of mayhem. What prevented you from turning on your heel and leaving? You just said you were neutral. You really had no thoughts one way or another on this.
Like I said, I want to be a cameraman. And I figured you guys were down in the trenches, and if I want to be a cameraman someday, I might as well get used to it now.
Well.
Thank you, Valerie, for being with us. We'd like to tell you now that indeed David Jackson was right. Our Sky 9 helicopter did take a bullet, or he thought 2, and our Sky 9 is temporarily being brought in. We're going to check it out, see whether the damage was enough to ground it, or whether or not they can continue their coverage as we've been doing since 5-something this afternoon.
Okay, we're going to go back out to Pacoima, the Foothill Division, and Joe Avalar, and check in with him now. Joe.
What you've got right now is you have police officers on the move right now. They've created a 2-block perimeter around the Foothill Division station here. As we move around, you can see that these officers look like they're moving back toward the station. There's a bus actually in front of the station blocking the entrance. But as we swing around, if we can, my photographer Webb Weber, let's swing around and show you that right now this whole area is clear. They've moved the rioters 2 blocks away. They still say the crowd is aggressive. They're still throwing rocks and bottles at the cops, but the cops keep moving them back. They haven't made many arrests, if any arrests. What they're doing is they're just physically pushing the rioters back, and that's the situation we have right now. There was one dumpster fire, I was told. That appears to be out. That was about 3 blocks away. And as I told you earlier tonight, there were gunshots as police moved the rioters away from the police station. There was a series of 4 gunshots about 75 feet from me. Nobody was hurt in that. My photographer, Webb Weber, has been hit twice in the legs by rocks. He's all right now. That's the situation here. Still tense, but not as bad as the rest of part of the city.
Joe, thank you for that. Gunfire where Joe is. Gunfire downtown, and just a little while ago to bring you up to date gunfire at our Sky 9. Our aircraft was hit. It's going to land, and check it out.
We have LAPD Lieutenant Don Duncan on the phone with us. So once again, we've heard that the entire LAPD is on tactical alert, that you're going to mobilize and whatever, but we see very little except in areas where there are rioters, except a lot of restraint. But in other areas, we see no LAPD presence, I should say. What exactly is the status, Lieutenant?
Well, as of 8 o'clock this evening, we have mobilized, and we're in the process of calling in all our off-duty officers that are available, and staging them, and we're deploying them to the problem areas. We're actively undertaking an enforcement effort in addition to providing security for firefighting efforts in the area. We have a number of locations that we're attempting to deal with in South Central Los Angeles, at the Civic Center, and in the San Fernando Valley out in Foothill, and we're deploying our resources appropriately.
Can you tell us what took so long to get your resources in order into the South Central Los Angeles area? 2.5 to 3 hours went by, and we didn't see any LAPD. Was that on purpose, or was it that you just weren't organized?
Well, I don't know that no, it certainly was not on purpose, and that's to assume that we weren't involved in some enforcement activity from the outset. It's a matter of marshaling and deploying resources, and those things take time.
3 hours or so, right?
I don't know that that's how long it took.
Lieutenant, this could be an impossible question to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Once you do have everybody fully mobilized, how long do you suppose it'll take to get all of this under control?
You were absolutely right when you said that was an impossible question to answer.
Well, do you feel that you have the resources to get it under control? Might be a more direct question.
Well, we're going to deploy the resources that we have, and we have established plans to deal with situations such as this, and hopefully we'll be able to control it.
How many police officers are mobilized on duty in uniform right now?
I can't give you that number. I don't know what the figure is.
Well, when we call full mobilization, what does that mean?
It means that all available officers are called.
All available?
Yes, sir.
I see. So it wouldn't be the full force of, say, 8,000 men?
No, it would not be the entire force of 8,000 men.
When you say that you're waiting for the full complement, does that include some of the National Guard reinforcements that we're expecting?
I don't know I don't know what is involved in deploying the National Guard. I don't know at what point they will actually be called in or deployed. That's a question I can't answer.
Lieutenant Duncan, where is Police Chief Gates right now, and are we going to hear from him soon this evening?
I rather doubt it, because the chief is actively involved in assessing the situation and along with his command staff, deploying and attempting to control this situation, and I rather doubt that he'll be available for comment this evening.
Would it be safe to say that the word from the top at the LAPD is to all of its officers to exercise restraint to the extent that that's possible?
Very clearly, and that was the message that the chief made in his videotape to the officers several days ago.
That was then, and this is now, and when you see some of the pictures that we've been looking at all night, you know, what you say in theory and what happens in reality can be two obviously completely different things based on the circumstances.
We expect our officers to act professionally and exercise restraint under all circumstances.
How many locations are you monitoring right now?
I can't give you an actual figures to the number of locations that are being monitored or where we're actually undertaking enforcement activity, but there are many, and they're throughout the city.
In these confrontations tonight, have there been any police injured that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of. We had one firefighter that was wounded near Adams and Western, and that's the only firefighter or policeman that I'm aware of at this point.
And the damage at Parker Center, was it basically the parking kiosk, the guard shack that we heard about, and some external, just some of the windows downstairs? Is that the extent of it?
To the best of my knowledge, yes, it is.
Thank you very much for your information and your time on a very busy night.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We'd like to bring you up to date, too, from an earlier report that we had here on Channel 9, that about 45 people, to our knowledge, had been injured to one degree or another, and 20 of them, as of about 45 minutes ago, had been treated at Daniel Freeman Hospital, and another 25 had been waiting to be treated, where they are on a hospital alert at Daniel Freeman. Okay, and as I said that, and that would have accounted for 45 people right there, the latest we have now is there have been 72 injuries as far as we know, and 1 death. And perhaps you, as you talk in my ear, Mr. Producer, you can tell me where the death took place or something about that.
The wire copy has just come up in the monitor. Let me just read it cold. The spokeswoman at the Los Angeles hospital says 1 person has died in the violence rocking the city. Spokeswoman at Daniel Freeman Memorial Hospital says the victim was killed by a gunshot wounds. We have no other details available. The downtown hospital says a trucker who was badly beaten by a street mob is in surgery and is in very critical condition.
Our Kerry Berglund is at Daniel Freeman Hospital. Perhaps he can tell us more on the shooting and the death. What do you have on that, Kerry?
We have probably one of the busiest places in town, if that is even able to be believed. Daniel Freeman is taking in most of the injuries tonight. As you just said, and as we have learned here just a few minutes ago, 1 person is dead as a result of gunshot wounds received tonight. And 3 to 4 other people are inside right now in critical condition, also being treated for gunshot wounds. We have, as we see, ambulances coming in, a steady stream of either ambulances, fire trucks, all sorts of official vehicles, and also private cars bringing in loved ones who have been injured. Here you see somebody being unloaded from an ambulance, and inside, as you can imagine, the emergency room is swamped. More than 50 people in there now being treated, between the 20 to 25 that they say. That number just does not change, of people waiting in the waiting room for treatment, as well as the people that are already undergoing treatment. We also have word that the man that we saw earlier tonight being pulled from that big semi and beaten is in surgery right now. He is listed in critical condition and is in surgery. And earlier tonight we talked to several people who helped that man, who were watching it on TV and went out into the street, got him back in his truck and helped him. And we also talked to another man from the same trucking company to describe the works of Good Samaritans. We got to tell you, we have to take this tape now with my picture because nobody we talked to tonight wants their picture on TV. But here's an account of that dramatic story as it unfolded.
A guy came up who had saw it on the news or heard it on the radio and came up and got in the truck and drove him over here to Daniel Freeman through that crowd that was still attacking him. In fact, he got his jewelry yanked off of him while he was trying to drive the truck to get out of there. He's a big guy. I guess that's why he was able to do it.
If they hadn't helped,
he'd be dead right now. It's that simple. He'd be dead. I knew it. I could see how bad he was. They saved his life. It takes a lot of courage to do what they did because they were risking their lives. And I'm thankful to them. I'm sure their family is. I just want people out there to know they can make a difference.
Certainly, people did make a difference. We don't know the outcome of the surgery for that man who is right now undergoing surgery. We don't have lights at the moment, but we must tell you that there is a lull right now outside Daniel Freeman. Certainly no lull inside as medical workers from the day shift and the evening shift are working overtime right now to try to serve as many people that just keep coming in and coming in and coming in with injuries as a result of what's going on in East LA. Reporting live from Daniel Freeman Hospital, I'm Kerry Berglund. Back to you in the studio. Jerry, Tawny.
Kerry,
thank you. Kerry.
Let's go over again what we told you a little while ago, some of the freeway closures in our area. There are 2 major ones, and of course this is due to violence and fires in the area in downtown LA and south central LA. The Hollywood Freeway, you're looking at the Harbor Freeway right now. The Harbor Freeway is closed in both directions between the Santa Monica Freeway and Century Boulevard. You're looking at it. Then up a little bit above that, you see the Hollywood Freeway is closed right in downtown LA. In both directions.
Other damage here. This is a Bank of America. I would say maybe 100 buildings in the downtown area. Look, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but at least I've seen at least 50, 60 buildings look like this in the immediate downtown area, just glass shattered everywhere. Absolute mess. And I don't know if you can see down here, Martin. We were talking about some of the cars. There are still some cars that are burning. Right, this is right City Hall area down. There's a couple of cars that are still on fire. You can see the policemen now have blocked off most of the downtown City Hall area. You can see the cars moving down. They're being diverted. They're being told to get away, obviously. once again, fire officials here trying to take care of a fire that is still burning at a bail bondsman place just in the downtown area. The fire officials once again saying that they're going to just try to secure the building. They're trying to take care of it as much as they can, but basically they just wanted to make sure nobody was inside, nobody was hurt. And they're pretty much going to start deploying some of their units in some of the other areas. They're going to keep one engine company here, it seems.
And
Linda?
Linda?
They're just going to move on. Yeah, Ann.
That one seems to be burning from the upper story. How did that get started? Do we know? Somebody throw something in the window or what?
I'll tell you, I just asked the captain here, and I said, did this, and I was pointing to all this mess here. Did this cause that too, or was this unrelated? And the fire official, he said, yeah, this is what's caused everything here tonight, and he had a very disgusted look on his face.
So we're not sure exactly how, but we know it's part of the whole mess then.
Pardon me, Ann?
Never mind. It's okay. Thank you very much, Linda Moore.
This?
This.
For calm, and it looked like up to about 5:30 tonight that is what we were going to get. Certainly we had the protests, people legitimately angry over the verdict, people that didn't like it at all, and people of all races, all colors, but it has turned to something certainly much more than that.
And there have been some puzzles tonight as well. We've watched as cars have burned and buildings have burned, and there either haven't been enough personnel to get to everything, or there was a conscious decision for a while, we can assume, at that one intersection where the looting and the rock throwing and the bottle throwing and the beating was going on, a conscious decision on the part of the police department to stay out of there and let whatever was going to happen just happen. They didn't go in to try to save anybody, but they didn't go in to inflame the situation any further either.
We have talked about that a lot tonight, and I want to again reiterate that these are questions I think that everybody has. This is not casting any judgment at all on the LAPD or the fire department or anybody in command. They are questions that really ought to be answered, and I'm sure that they will.
They're
had
legitimate
a plan.
questions.
Of course
when
they
you
are.
see the law being broken and you see people in jeopardy and there's nobody there and it's obvious to the city that it's going on.
What is the plan? Right. District Attorney was wondering the same thing. Ira Reiner was here tonight. You know, if it was the plan, if they carried it out that way, we'll find out.
Yeah, I dare say we will, because we had from Chief Darrell Gates himself saying that he was working on a plan just in case something like this should happen. He had the money set aside, and that was several days before this happened.
Now thousands of fans will be leaving the Lakers playoff game, and we are told that so far there have been no problems, and that the Forum management as well as police officers have set up barricades to help direct traffic into safe areas. So that should put your mind at ease there if you're waiting for someone to come home from that Lakers game. People at the Forum are making announcements at the game warning people not to get off the main roads while they're going home. We have a news crew on the way to the Forum, and we'll let you know more about what's happening there as soon as we know anything more.
Because right now the Forum in the Inglewood area is still well west of the troubled area that we are showing you video of now. Major fires, and for some reason, perhaps because people who are setting fires know that inside these indoor swap meet buildings are huge amounts of clothing and other very flammable, burnable stuff. And perhaps that's why they are picking on these buildings. But there does seem to be an inordinate number of those indoor swap meet buildings being set on fire. It seems sort of odd to be looking at these pictures from the helicopter of big, big buildings, 2 and 3 stories, fully engulfed in flames, and traffic sort of going by them as if things were normal.
Yeah, and very few lights, as Tony was telling us earlier. Much of the electricity around some of these areas is out because transformers have either blown or been blown or burned.
We do have a report that perhaps one person has been killed as the result of tonight's violence, the man dying from trauma and gunshot wounds, according to officials at Daniel Freeman Memorial Hospital. Also, we saw the pictures of the man laying in the street around Florence and Normandy next to his big rig truck. He is reportedly in surgery right now in critical condition, as Patty said, at least an Associated Press report of as many as 72 injuries.
Let's speak now with Reverend Carl Washington, who has been a voice of calm through this whole thing from the New Commandment Church. Thanks for sticking around with us here. This hurts, doesn't it?
Absolutely. As I sit here and listen at the reports coming in and watching the fires, it takes a great deal of sorrow to my heart to see that the people are reacting. After 29 days of a trial, we had no problems down in Simi Valley. We depended totally upon the peoples, Chris and Patty, to remain professional as they did during the trial. You guys covered it well, and the people are pleased with the coverage.
Reverend Washington, let me interrupt you. I'm sorry to do this, but Dave Bryan has pulled up stakes in Simi Valley and is now taking up residence in downtown Los Angeles, where he has more on the situation there. Dave?
Well, Chris, we just followed a group of, I guess what could only be called rioters as they made their way through downtown Los Angeles, literally winding through the streets of the city. We have some very dramatic videotape as we followed this group through the downtown government building center. The group started on Aliso Street and turned onto Main. This is a scene on Main Street. You see the crowd is trying to turn over a large, full-size school bus. This is right across from the federal court building. Several fires had already been set, and the group had broken windows and thrown trash cans into the court building. There you see several of the people attacking the bus. The group, I would say, of about 100 people. And here we're moving. The group just kept winding through the streets. Here now they're approaching the entrance to the courthouse. This is on Main Street. As we picked up the group, they were marching up Aliso. They marched onto Main Street. The police were obviously several steps behind this group and essentially just followed them through the streets, the police officers trying to seal off the streets. You can see what effect it had on traffic in the area. The group, as I say, about 100 people, basically just marching right down the middle of the street, at some point stopping cars. However, I must say that that there are some people in the group that demanded that they leave motorists alone, and these motorists were not dragged out of their cars as others we here have been. This is a very expensive automobile, private car, just parked on the street. Suddenly the crowd turned on it. You can see people jumping on it and breaking windows. A fire has been set. We just passed that car. This happened within the past 30 minutes. There was an attempt to turn this car over. That too was unsuccessful. However, I can tell you that the car was extremely seriously damaged. This is City Hall East, across from the rear entrance of City Hall. Here again, the crowd smashing windows, approaching with trash cans. That gentleman trying to get us to turn the camera off. In a minute here, you're going to see some other people approaching the windows of the building with trash cans, throwing the cans right through. There's a gentleman smashing the windows. This, again, is along Main Street, right in the center of the city. The police just, frankly, could not keep up with this group. Here the police moving in, and each time the police moved in, the group would just simply move along, and they would stay about a block ahead of the police officers. Fire trucks had difficulty getting through. At this point, the crowd has set a police car on fire. That was the fire you saw burning in the background. Here we are now on the west end of City Hall. The police, again, trying to move in, trying to control the crowd. Police in full riot gear with helmets and batons. There's the police car again. They just passed the police car burning in the background. This is the west side of City Hall, still on Temple Street. Police officers sealing off the streets. I believe now they have sealed off this entire area, and the crowd has dispersed. There again, that's the police car burning in the background. You can see very dramatic flames. The crowd actually turned the patrol car over and set it on fire, smashing all of the windows in the car and then just flipping it over. At one point, the bullets in the car started going off. Everyone ducked for cover. Everyone's tense down here. Nobody knows if somebody's firing a gun or what's going off. All you know is you hear shots being fired. In that case, it was the ammunition stored in the police car. When the fire got to it, suddenly it sounded like a burst of gunfire. Now, this is the hill on the west side of City Hall. The police officers pushing the demonstrators back, and so the action continued through the downtown area. The crowd eventually turning up First Street and onto Spring Street, where a restaurant on the corner of First and Spring, a coffee shop, Phil's Coffee Shop, was set on fire and looked to be very badly damaged. The group then moved down
Spring Street and seemed to disperse. We started heading back to this location at about 10:30, and at that point it looked as if the police finally had the situation under control. The streets had been sealed off and the crowd seemed to disperse in several different directions. At no point did it seem as though there were more than, I would estimate, 100 to 150 people involved. But the problem for police officers was that the group moved very quickly, never stopping. And as soon as a group of police officers arrived, they were gone, and they stayed about a block ahead of the police officers. And it's just physically impossible to cover the entire downtown area simultaneously, although I think now they have it pretty well sealed off. Chris?
All right, Dave, we, by the way, just got off the phone with the folks at the security office at SC. Of course, that is certainly in the area where there has been the trouble tonight. In case you're worrying about a son or a daughter in the area, we've been told that thus far there are no reports of problems on the SC campus or in the nearby apartments where so many of the students going to SC live. But the word is that one person at least has been killed tonight, many as 72 more injured in the violence that followed the verdict in Simi Valley today, when the 4 officers accused of beating Rodney King were essentially acquitted.
We want to go now to Jane Wells. She has been in Simi Valley, as has Dave Bryan, all these many weeks. And now she is somewhere else, and she's taken the satellite truck with her. Jane, where are you and what's going on?
Patty, we are in the Baldwin Hills area overlooking one of the fires, one of the many fires that are burning in that area tonight. And one thing that we have noticed in our drive here from Simi Valley is the radio chatter on the scanners. It has been going like crazy. We at one point, in fact, heard some fire units being told not to respond south of the Santa Monica Freeway. We're going to play a little tape of that for you now. Here is some of the radio chatter we heard on our way here tonight.
Right now, Rescue 27 and Rescue 21 are going with a strike team to Vernon and Vermont on a convalescent home on fire.
210 West 7th Street on the roof. Suspect is a male, black, 24 years, wearing a white t-shirt, armed with a gun, possibly a Magnum, any Century Unit 5607 and RD 174.
2 to 60, David. Stand by. Do you understand? Stand by. Roger. To get this thing knocked out, we'll work our way back over to Florence and catch those fires we passed on the way up here on Western.
Any unit in the vicinity, 2845 is requesting a backup on King and Vermont on 459 suspect. Southwest City, Southwest City, 459 suspect in the Africa Ryan Vernon, Ralph Markets, numerous male blacks and male Hispanics breaking into the location, code to entry in 5591.
In 3, repeat. DOC from Arlington IC, be advised at this time we're at a resource assist command post. Reported structure fire 2229 Parkside, 2229 Parkside. That's engine 1, engine 16, light force 12 and battalion 12. Structure fire 2229 Parkside, time 2227. We got a commercial occupancy, about 8 or 9 units. And we got a truck company and sister. Engine 68, your location. Is this Vermont 36? No, this is for 42nd and Crenshaw. OCD from engine 14, information only. We have about 1,000 foot by 100 foot furniture warehouse on Slauson and Vermont that's well involved. No sense sending anybody there. We have a church on 54th in Vermont that's just taken off. Area's too dark, too dangerous.
Those words, those last words, too dark, too dangerous, we've heard a lot on the scanners tonight. I don't know if you could hear at one point, one fire station was saying they were all out of resources. So Chris and Patty, a lot of these fires have been allowed to burn for a long time. They just didn't feel secure enough to go in there to handle them. Here lately they have been, although you can see one flaring up right there again. Actually, the fires from our vantage point have started to die down a little bit in this particular area. That's not to say they are starting up again somewhere else, but they have started to get a lot of water on the fires that we see here from our vantage point in Baldwin Hills.
Are you deep inside Baldwin Hills, or are you on the periphery? Jane.
Well, we're up about as high as we can get to try and get you an overview shot. This was the first location we were able to stop at in rushing here from Simi Valley. We were at the courthouse all evening until things started to finally die down there, which in fact, as we were leaving the courthouse, which was, I'd say about 9 o'clock, there were still people there just hanging around. They just still couldn't believe it and didn't want to go home. But of course, the story was no longer there. It had moved back into LA County, and that's where we are now.
Okay, Jane, thanks very much. We want to go back now to Jim Blancarte, the fire commissioner, who's fire commissioner hat tonight, attorney hat earlier for us. You said you weren't even able to get to your office downtown.
No, we were trying to get into the command center at City Hall East. The fire department has a major command center in the basement of City Hall East for major emergencies, earthquakes. Certainly what you're seeing tonight is a major fire emergency. I could not get into the building. The crowds that are running the streets of Los Angeles, as you can see from your own videotape, made that a very dangerous proposition.
What Dave Bryan just showed us.
Exactly. I was in touch with Chief Manning, who is at the command center by cellular phone. He is in the basement of City Hall commanding the fire department resources, but as you've just reported, we are now totally out of resources. We're going completely to reserves. We're bringing in mutual aid. If we could get Chief Manning on the phone, you could get an update on that, but as of now, we have used up the resources we have on hand.
And the situation right now is that we are not fighting fires, we're taking care of getting people out, right?
Absolutely. Priority is to save lives. Every fire engine company has life-saving capability on it, like a rescue ambulance. They simply do not transport, but they have life support systems, and right now the priority is to get in there and treat injured people, rescue people. Property is going to have to take a secondary position. To the extent that we have firefighting resources available, they will protect what is known as the exposures, the buildings on either side of what is already burning. If something's fully involved, there is no choice but to let it go.
How many firefighters does the city of Los Angeles have out on the streets right now?
We probably have at least 1,500, if not more. We could be up to 2,000 by now. I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly, but certainly command center in the basement of City Hall right now would have a very good approximation of how many people we've got. Certainly I can assure you at this point, all off-duty personnel are reporting to their particular assignments and are being used to the extent that we need all the resources we can get right now.
Once again, one of those firefighters shot in the face while doing his duty, and we don't have any word yet on the extent of his injuries, what kind of condition he's in. He's at Cedars-Sinai right now.
Well, a tough job on any day, just got a lot tougher given the violence in the streets. And, you know, it's important to remember it's a very small element of the community that we serve that is causing these kind of problems. I think a safe bet is that the people who are committing these crimes are people who are not strangers to crimes. The people from those communities, the majority of those people are law-abiding citizens, but it just takes a few folks to cause the kind of problems that you're seeing right now.
Jim Blancarte, thank you.
We have word that one person has died of trauma and gunshot wounds tonight. We do not have an identification on that person. Right now, I understand that Mayor Bradley made a statement a little bit earlier. We have basically what is raw videotape of the mayor's statement. Let's run that right now.
Following the verdict in the case of the 4 officers who were engaged in the beating of Rodney King a year ago, a number of acts of vandalism, shootings, with some people pulled out of their automobiles and assaulted, that matter was brought under control. We now have sporadic fires throughout the city. At the last report, there were about 50 fires, and they were so scattered that the fire personnel were not able to get to 35 of these fires. That has caused us to seek assistance from the County of Los Angeles, from surrounding cities, and we're very pleased with that spirit of cooperation. They've offered us not only sheriffs, police officers, Highway Patrol has now been assigned to assist, and the National Guard has been placed on alert. We believe that the situation is now simmering down, pretty much under control, and the governor has assisted us with a declaration of emergency so that in the event further assistance is needed, it will be able to respond very quickly. We're encouraging everyone to cooperate, stay off the streets. It's anticipated that a curfew will be put into effect tomorrow night. I think that the law enforcement people, fire personnel, the National Guard, Sheriff's Department, and all of the others who are joining in a coordinated effort are going to be able to keep this situation under control.
Mayor, I spent most of the night on the streets. I mean, a lot of it, I mean, there's laughing going on, there's people giving each other high fives out there. I mean, your take on who's out there causing this violence, is it people just angry over the verdict, or has it gone beyond that?
No, it's pretty hard to know. We've had people talk about the revolution is on. We've noticed that in the downtown area in particular, most of those who were engaged in that activity were young whites, and in the south part of Los Angeles, blacks were involved. But everybody seems to be using this as a means of sort of celebrating for themselves for whatever purpose. And it's clear that there's a feeling of outrage about the verdict of not guilty against those 4 officers. But, you know, some people use that as a means to get into the action and then just enjoy themselves.
Have you been in touch at all with police command, and have they been trying, and it appeared at Parker Center that they were showing quite a bit of restraint really under the circumstances.
Well, I've been sitting in the Emergency Operations Center on several occasions tonight. It was from there that we talked with the governor and with the sheriff, the chief of police. So the answer to your question in substance is yes. I've been in touch with our law enforcement people throughout the night.
Your message, Mayor, to those who are out there doing the rioting and participating in the violence?
It's very difficult to direct a message to anyone who's engaged in that kind of vandalism. They go by their own beat. They're not responsive to either elected officials, community leaders, or anybody else. We're going to do our best to preserve peace and security in this city, and we'll take whatever resources are needed in order to bring this about.
Does what's happening tonight help the situation at all?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
People are venting their frustrations and their anger or whatever they're doing out there. I mean, does it just make it worse for the community in the end? I mean, you gave a speech tonight at AME for unity and bring everyone together. I mean,
the responsible leadership in the city has come together, has called for people to vent their feelings, but to do so in a responsible fashion. It's one thing to get angry. It's quite another to engage in violence. It's quite destructive when people set fires or shoot at people or engage in vandalism. And we certainly are opposed to that. We're trying to caution against it. But ultimately, it's going to be our law enforcement people who are brought to the scene to ensure that this thing does not get out of hand.
Is this state of alert open-ended then until we...
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
That's Mayor Tom Bradley, a raw tape of a news conference or a statement he made a little bit earlier tonight within the last several moments talking about raw tape of the talking about the situation. We've got a map now that shows us where the 7 biggest fires have been or are still in our city tonight. Beginning on the west side of the Harbor Freeway, Adams and Western, a big one. And then Normandy and Florence, Western and Vermont, that whole area. That's where the trouble really began about 5:30 this afternoon when some rocks were thrown at a police car, then some people taken out of their cars and beaten up, and then the fires began in that whole area of Florence between Western, Normandy, and Vermont and so on. There's also has been a big fire at Manchester and Vermont. Now over on the east side of the Harbor Freeway, Imperial just south of Manchester, between Figueroa and Avalon on Florence is a big one, and on Martin Luther King Boulevard and Figueroa, a big one there as well. It seems to me we take a look at those 7, we can see the 7 biggest fires out of many, many set this evening by people, some of them claiming to be upset about the verdict in Simi Valley, others seemingly just going out to raise hell and look for trouble.
This violence is also hurting the city's children. The LA Unified School District is closing all schools bounded by Adams Boulevard to the north, Imperial Highway to the south, La Cienega Boulevard on the west, and Alameda on the east. LA Unified doesn't know offhand how many schools will be affected by the closures. So far, tomorrow is the only day the schools will be closed. We will let you know when we know more about that. City Hall South Child Care Center will also be shut down tomorrow because of tonight's rioting. We understand that Governor Wilson plans a news conference for about half an hour from now at 11:45 this evening. We hope to be able to carry it live from Sacramento, and I'm sure he will give us more information at that time about the National Guard troops and when we can expect the deployment.
And perhaps as many as 2,000 National Guard troops coming into Los Angeles to help out and to help to maintain some order. Interesting note here, a juror in the trial of those 4 men that were charged in the beating of Rodney King says that Rodney King's failure to testify in the trial may have affected the verdict. The unidentified juror says had King been able to talk to us, the video might have been looked at differently. The juror says that over the 7 days of deliberations, the jury looked at that tape shot by George Holliday in Lakeview Terrace more than 30 times, slowing it down at times to be examined frame by frame. The juror says when it was slowed down, it was clear that many of the blows did not connect, many of the baton blows of the officers delivered in the vicinity, at least in that juror's mind, of Rodney King.
Of course, the jury beat a hasty retreat after coming to that verdict today. We had expected to be able to talk to the jurors, at least a few of them, about how they reached their verdict, but as is their right, they decided to not do that. Evidently, Nightline was able to get someone to talk under promise of obscurity.
Right.
Protecting identity even as to male and female. So that's how we have that information. Curfew in effect tomorrow night. You heard Mayor Bradley say that just a few minutes ago, and then he says he will take it night by night. After that, that's not surprising news, of course, that there would be a curfew in effect.
Because we have at this moment 1 person dead, killed from trauma and gunshot wounds, at least 72 other people wounded or injured, including a firefighter shot in the face in the violence in the wake of the verdict in the Rodney King case. That 1 person died at Daniel Freeman Memorial Hospital from gunshot wounds and trauma, but that person has not been identified. We don't have word yet on who that person was.
And one of those people whom you saw so savagely beaten there at Florence and Normandy is in critical condition tonight, in surgery when last we heard. That's horrendous, of course, but as we watched, it certainly looked like he was being very badly hurt.
About 4,000 customers without power in the south central and southwestern parts of the city. Tony Valdez reporting earlier tonight that perhaps coincidentally, perhaps because as the result of gunshots, that electrical transformers seem to be blowing up in that part of town with rather great regularity. We were just talking about one of the jurors sort of coming out of, now we're back to more video of the fires. One of the fires, this certainly would qualify as one of those big 7 we were talking about earlier.
It surely would, and this is one that firefighters have managed to make their way to and get some water on. It looks like they're not having too much luck with it. Perhaps as Jim Blancardi was telling us a while ago, they're protecting the surrounding buildings and letting this fire burn. Mayor Bradley did say, and it was encouraging to hear, that it seems to be lessening. The violence seems to be wearing down as of this hour. We can only hope that's true.
We were talking a moment ago about one of the jurors in the King case talking under rather strict restrictions on anonymity, telling Ted Koppel that had Rodney King testified before that jury, that things might have been different. And that, of course, was a tactical decision made by the prosecution.
For them all. As we look at this one, you can see it's a pretty good-sized structure fire, a lot of heavy smoke going up. We are going to head out to another location here, Paul and Ann. Just wanted to give you a quick look at this, and we'll be giving you an update as we go.
All right, Rick, tell me one more time. That's the Santa Monica Freeway. Give me an off-ramp. Give me a cross street.
That's right. The off-ramp, Normandy and Western, I can see just ahead of me. If that gives you an indication, behind me, it would be the Harbor Freeway and Grand Avenue.
Okay, we've got it. Thank you, Rick Romero, for checking in. We have some new information here. One firefighter is being treated for a gunshot wound at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. A firefighter's been shot. He is in stable condition. He was shot in the cheek. At Daniel Freeman Hospital, one person died from gunshot wounds and traumatic injuries, but the identity and sex weren't available. The hospital declared an internal disaster, the Daniel Freeman Hospital, freeing up beds, calling in off-duty doctors and nurses, and retaining day staff into the night.
We have another situation. We got to get right to Henry Alfaro. He's at the command post at 54th and Arlington, and there's been a fire reported there too. Henry, what's happening?
Right shoulder, you can see that this fire is right adjacent to the RTD. This has been the command post for the Los Angeles Police Department. It's also been the location, the rallying point for all of the city and county fire department units as well as paramedic units. Earlier in the day when we were here, or earlier in this evening you might say, we did hear some sporadic gunfire. There was some firecrackers, and as I mentioned before, I do know the difference. So it's been a real hot spot for about the past couple of hours now. This entire neighborhood, there's no electricity here. All the lights have been turned off. Now, right behind us over to that way, that's the Crenshaw Boulevard. And it's very difficult to get it on tape right now, but there's an orange glow over one of these RTD buildings. We were told that there is a series of fires all along Crenshaw Boulevard, all along the business district. Not only fires, but a lot of looting. And so it's the police have been coming out. There's so much sporadic activity going on that it's relatively impossible to quell all of the disturbances. But also they brought in a couple of battering rams, mini tanks. That's about the only way that I can describe them. What they're going to use them for, I really don't know. There's about 600 officers. They keep coming and they keep going, heavily armed, all of them. There's also the Metro SWAT unit teams that have been coming in and out. In fact, right now we still have some more black and whites coming in. That fire seems to be gaining momentum. It's a lot bigger. It's relatively close. And it shows that there is rampant activity going on simply because this is where the police hang out right now. But fires are popping up all over the place. Some of the people that were here earlier on the block have all left for home. But here are some of the police cars that are coming back. Now, I don't know if they're coming back or of these new guys, but this has been a location for about 600 officers. It's going to be a busy place throughout the night into the early morning. That fire you can see is still gaining momentum. I really can't tell whether it's a business or a series of homes, but all of a sudden it just erupted. We saw some of the, it was like a mini explosion that we could see, and that's the extent of the event here right now. Reporting live, I'm Henry Alfaro. Back to you in the studio.
Henry, earlier tonight, the mayor declared a disaster area. He asked the governor to declare a disaster, which means that the National Guard would be coming in. We had official word that they were on their way. I suspect a good number of people watching us right now are fearing for their families and their safety. Do you know anything about the National Guard? Are they here yet?
No, as of right now, all we've heard is the fact that there's going to be about 1,000 men coming down here. They probably will be coming down here in this area because this is the focal point of all of the activity. There is so many things going on in this particular part of town that this is where they're going to be used.
Okay, Henry, we have information now that we knew earlier that one person had been killed, and we'd been talking in the neighborhood of a few dozen who had been admitted to Daniel Freeman Hospital. That hospital now says 72 people have been admitted to the emergency room at Daniel Freeman Memorial. Injuries ranging from minor to critical, according to the hospital spokeswoman, who said that one person had been killed. I believe that was a gunshot. Fire Department spokesman Bob Collis says firefighters have had at least 40 fire calls. Unclear how many were actually blazes. I would guess most of them, because we've already had word that there were 35 fires that the city couldn't get to. And we've seen a lot of them right here on the news tonight.
And we are assuming, of course, that that these fires are all related to what went on earlier today and what went on earlier tonight. I suppose there's a chance that maybe one or two of them isn't, but we really don't know that at this point.
Well, we've been watching a night of fires. Probably the fires are the single thing that sticks in the imagination the most as we've watched this night go by. It started with rocks and bottles being thrown and motorists being pulled out of cars and beaten up. And there have been confrontations between police and protesters, but the thing that really marks this night are these hellish fires. One commercial building after another, and Captain Ron had the newscopter scanning the horizon for us not too long ago, and you literally could see a new fire every time he moved a few feet. It was just boom, 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 one more, one more, one more. Most of them, we assume, burning pretty much unchecked.
Well, and one of the finest fire departments in the United States, and really hampered and probably feeling very frustrated, at a loss, because they can only respond to so many of these. And when they do respond, they've got to have police protection and police cover. We have reports of one firefighter already being shot. So it's very, very difficult for these people, and that is why you're seeing so many of these buildings go up unattended. They just haven't got the manpower to get. Now you see one burning, and right there you see two that are pretty much gone.
Basically a bed of smoldering ash is what that big one is. It
You see
burned
people
right to the
driving by on
foundation.
the road. We've seen people going by when the fires have been going on. It just isn't. It's a situation that really we haven't been able to fathom its totality yet, and probably won't for quite some time.
City News Service reports unconfirmed news from officials at Community Youth Gang Services violence at two housing projects, San Fernando Gardens near Foothill Boulevard and Glen Oaks in Pacoima, and Ramona Gardens in Boyle Heights on Soto Street near Brooklyn Avenue. Unconfirmed reports of violence at those two locations. And we're just bringing you these things as we get them. We haven't been out to confirm that these things are true or not, but by and large, as we've had these little bulletins throughout the night, we have found them to be confirmed later on. So unconfirmed at this point, but reports of violence at two housing projects in the north end of town, in Pacoima and in the east side in Boyle Heights.
All right, we've got a report now. We had a report earlier that some Los Angeles Unified Schools would be closed tomorrow. Schools in the Compton Unified School District will be closed tomorrow due to rioting in the Los Angeles area. Superintendent J.L. Hardy and the CUSD Board of Education will meet tomorrow to decide whether to open schools again on Friday. You know, Ann, sitting here in this studio and watching these pictures, I don't know about you, but I think about my family. I know you think about yours. And you think about the people that are at home right now that are really worried and are scared for themselves,
good reason.
for their children. I guess all that we can say is stay in your homes. For goodness sakes, don't go out. Don't try to get near any of this. Don't call 911 unless it's a dire emergency, because they're probably overloaded. The fire department is aware of these fires. They're getting to the ones that they can. And we will try to bring you as much information that will affect you and your children and the schools and your safety as we possibly can.
We've been in contact. Some of our crack writing staff upstairs been in contact with the National Guard up in Sacramento, and they tell us they cannot talk about the details of their deployment into Los Angeles to help take down the violence here. They say they are waiting for Governor Wilson to make the official announcement that they're going to be deployed to LA, and we expect that at 11:45 tonight. So again, no word yet from the National Guard on what units will be sent or when, but apparently they're still waiting for the big okay from the governor that they can be here.
For those of you who remember 1965 in August, the Watts riots, the National Guard was deployed then, and you are looking at much the same thing now, 27 years later. Captain Ron, we've been talking. What can you tell us?
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, go ahead. We've been watching your pictures. Have you got anything new to report?
You know, we're just seeing more and more of this stuff. We were on that fire just a few minutes ago. We were happy to see the fire department arrive there, and just as we left that fire, they were beginning to knock it down. Just as I was talking, I looked up to my left here, and a whole large section of the city, all of the lights went off. It became extremely black, just like a black hole. A lot of power outages are happening out here just as we speak. Paul, back to you.
Didn't you say that there was a transformer that exploded or went up in flames earlier tonight?
Actually, we've seen several of those, Paul, as the night has gone on, and they've been actually very, very spectacular. We're used to seeing the orange flames, and then as these transformers explode, it's that bright white light that occurs, and quite spectacular up here, Paul.
Has it settled down at all?
Not at all, Ann. I don't see any let up in the number of fires or the intensity. There's some go down and the fire department puts them out. I see others that build up and become just as intense. And I see absolutely no let up from the air.
We had you 2 miles from the original outbreak of violence about an hour and a half ago, Ron. That was the furthest fire. How about now? Is it more widespread?
Paul, I'd say it's a lot more widespread. I see from the original location at least 5 miles out to the east and maybe 7 miles to the north, and to the west another 2 miles, and to the south at least 4 miles. Very widespread at this point throughout the entire south central Los Angeles. Everywhere I look, I see outbreaks of fire.
4 miles, 7 miles, 40 fires at least, 35 that Mayor Bradley said the fire department couldn't get to. That's where we stand right now.
You know, we have a report also. This is another one of these little bulletins that's come into us from City News. And again, we have not been able to confirm this ourselves, but we have a report of looting at a store in Westwood, on Westwood Boulevard. Now, this would take us out of the South Central area and put us in a whole different part of town. Previously, we've talked about protests downtown, out in the Foothill Division. Primarily, the fires have been happening in the South Central area. This takes us out to the Westwood area with a report of looting, and that is all that we have on that right now. We know that we report again, police in riot gear patrolling Westwood Boulevard. So we will be working on that to try to get that confirmed for you, perhaps get somebody out there. Rick Romero was going in that direction. Yeah.
Rick stopped by the freeway there to give us a report about the fire by the Santa Monica Freeway. He's on his way to Westwood now.
The Harbor Freeway has been closed down tonight, by the way, if you have someplace to go tonight. Ambulance call right below us. Take it away, Ron. What do you see?
Okay, we just pulled up to the scene of this one fire, and we're looking down, and the ambulance is pulled up. We see several policemen out there, and we'll look with you as we see what's going on. It's at the scene of the furniture store. It looks like they've got several people that are in that one corner right underneath the furniture sign. Those are policemen handling that. I don't know what the involvement with the ambulance is. However, I do see 3 police cars at that scene at this moment.
Is somebody down on the sidewalk, could you tell?
Definitely. You know what? Because of the ambulance is getting out their gurney at this time, I suspect that there is somebody that's injured, and it looks like they'll be transporting them momentarily. And to get a location on this thing, I'm going to guess that because of all the fires, it's now beginning, the smoke is beginning to block some of the major landmarks where we pick up these street names.
Ron, it looks like it's south of Slauson.
Could be south of Slauson, according to Dave, if you can hear him.
All right, Captain Ron, we are going to go now to Mark Brown, who's at Daniel Freeman Hospital. Mark?
Yes, we are live at Daniel Freeman Hospital, where, as you can see right now, another injured person is being brought in. We have no indication how bad off that person is, but we know there are a lot of people here at Daniel Freeman Hospital who have been brought in with a lot of different kinds of injuries ranging from bumps and bruises all the way to gunshot wounds. I'm here now with Daniel McLean. He is the Chief Executive Officer here at Daniel Freeman Hospital. I understand there has been a second death. Can you confirm that for me, sir?
Yes, that's true. We've pronounced our second dead person as a result of these activities.
And what did that second person, I understand it was a man, what did he die of?
He died of multiple trauma injuries related to apparently falling out of an automobile.
Okay. What can you tell me about who's in there right now, the number of critical patients, people in surgery? Kind of break it down for me, if you would.
We've treated approximately 50 people in the emergency room for a variety of problems, as you said earlier. We've had 2 deaths. We have 1 critical patient in surgery at this time, and we have 4 other critical patients that have been admitted to the hospital.
Obviously, this is a lot higher patient load than you're used to. How did you react to this? How did you get geared up for it?
Well, Daniel Freeman, like all hospitals, has a disaster plan, which we exercise regularly. Being prepared for these types of disasters is part of what we do, being an active emergency hospital. We activated our disaster plan, which brought in additional staff for the emergency room, operating room, and nursing staff, and have been able to treat everyone who's come in. We've turned no one away.
You told me about the remarks of one nurse who was activated to Desert Storm. Tell me about what she said.
One comment that I did hear from a nurse that was there during Desert Storm was that this particular activity during the peak of it was worse than anything that she'd seen in Desert Storm.
How about you? You've been in this business a while, haven't you?
This is as intensive activity in an emergency room and is about as bad as I've ever seen.
Okay, how many critical did you say? You've got 4 critical at this time?
We have 4 admitted to the hospital, a 5th that's in surgery.
Okay.
So 5 total.
And the people that are critically injured, what sort of injuries do they have?
Different types of trauma. I'm not familiar with all of their injuries.
Okay, obviously the folks here at Daniel Freeman trying to deal with, thank you very much, Daniel McLean of Daniel Freeman Hospital. Like other hospitals in this area right now, they are swamped. They are doing the best they can to deal with it. The advice, I would guess, to anyone who's just stay outside, and you might avoid being injured and having to come to the hospital and deal with this. Reporting live from the city of Inglewood, I'm Mark Brown. Now back to you.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Confirming our second death related to the violence, the rioting, the fires that have been going on now for the better part of 4 to 5 hours.
While we watch as Los Angeles continues to burn, we can tell you that several Los Angeles Unified School District campuses will be closed down tomorrow because of the rioting. Superintendent William Anton of LA Unified School District has called for closure of all schools and offices bounded by Adams Boulevard to the north, Imperial Highway south, La Cienega on the west, and Alameda on the east. And nobody could say immediately just how many schools that would be, but she's emphasizing school buses will not pick up or drop off any students who live in that area but attend schools in other part of the district either. So they're just not going to be going in there to teach school or to pick kids up either. We also have Catholic Archdiocese, the Los Angeles Catholic Archdiocese, saying that Catholic elementary and high schools will be closed also in South Central LA area tomorrow. Catholic School Superintendent Jerome Porath saying all schools closed in basically the same area: Adams Boulevard North, Imperial Highway South, Central Avenue East, and La Cienega on the west. And the Compton Unified School District saying now that classes will be canceled tomorrow because of the rioting. So we do have a partial list of the LA Unified Schools that will be closed tomorrow. We can go through Bret Hart Junior High, Samuel Gompers Junior High,
Drew Junior High, Edison Junior High, Carver Junior High, Forshey Junior High, Audubon Junior High, Fremont High School, Washington High School,
Locke High School, Jordan High, Jefferson High, Crenshaw High, Manual Arts High School, and Dorsey High School. All of those schools will be closed tomorrow, and we can assume if there are that many of the secondary schools, a great many elementary schools will be closed tomorrow as well. And Mayor Bradley's talking about a curfew tomorrow. It is a city in deep trouble tonight.
We have been talking about the police response, the timing of the police response. We have an officer on the line. We're going to get to her in just a minute. She's from the Wilshire Division. We're very anxious to talk to her about what's going on. First, though, Jeff Michael out at Foothill. Jeff?
Sergeant, what's the location?
Jeff, they're live on the car.
Okay, I'm sorry, we didn't hear you. We just had some officers who tore out of here as fast as you can believe. They're going to another call. We're going to show you something that so far a lot of people haven't been able to see tonight. We've made a decision, as all of you know, down in South Central Los Angeles, not to go into the area that has been hit. However, out here in Foothill, we can get to an area that is now Code 4 that's been cleared. Here's the A&D liquor store. It was looted not too long ago. You can tell that they bashed it in either with a car or they very possibly used the cement parking thing to go ahead and bash it in and then pull the stuff out. In fact, the car was parked here ready to load up, and that's when the LAPD officers came and got everybody out of here. There was certainly some violence that went on here. There was some violence that went on down at the scene where Rodney King was originally arrested at Foothill Boulevard in Osborne, and there was also some violence earlier tonight at the Foothill Division Police Station. If we have some of that tape, we can go to that right now. Do we have that? Okay,
There's a lot of changes that need to be made. We do not need to be violent. We need to join together in forces
other than violence. We do not need to show any more ignorance. Don't go out and destroy your own communities. Don't resort to violence. Just stand up, show your support, and do what you have to do, but don't resort to violence because we're not hurting anybody but ourselves.
We have to show him what kind of people we really are. We need to pull together all minorities, and that's what we're here doing. We're pulling together and becoming one against this injustice.
Sir, you just said you had 4 words for us.
Yeah, wait till William gets here.
Wait till Willie Williams gets here.
That's it.
Do you believe that Commissioner Williams, new Police Chief Williams, will make a difference?
He's going to make a difference. Believe me, he's going to make a difference.
Obviously, those people were not at Foothill Division headquarters. Those were the very, very responsible protesters at Foothill and Osborne who were out to make a call. They were out to, they were getting people to honk in support of their cause and in objection to the not guilty verdicts that were read earlier today. Those people have for the most part, gone home here in the Foothill area, in Pacoima as well. The people who remain are the people who are causing trouble, the gangbangers, and of course we're back down live now looking at the fires in South Central LA. No fires out here in the Foothill area. In Pacoima we had 1 dumpster fire, certainly nothing of this order, and police in the Foothill Division are very, very thankful for that as well. You know, it's a double-edged sword for these men and women out here. This is the division where the 4 officers who were charged with the beating of Rodney King originally served. There is a lot of animosity against the men out here, the men and women who are out trying to bring calm to the streets on Foothill Boulevard and in this area. But for now, we're going to go ahead and, in fact, break down. When you first came to us, Paul and Ann, as I said, a squad of officers rushed out of here to go to another location. We're going to go ahead and check that out and find out if there's anything else going on out here. For now, reporting live from Foothill Boulevard, I'm Jeff Michael. Back to both of you.
Thanks, okay, Jeff, good enough. Can we go up to Captain Ron very quickly to give you an idea of the intensity in some of these fires? Ron, what are you feeling up there?
I'll tell you, Paul, this is quite a strong one, and we've noticed this in a couple other ones, and Dave and I were just talking about it. Sometimes when we make the orbit around these fires, we'll get in just the right positions, and we can actually feel the heat from these huge, intense fires against us at this time. It kind of warms the air. That normally the air up here right now is pretty cool. Poor Dave has his jacket on trying to stay warm, but every once in a while we'll go around here and we can actually feel that intense heat from these fires. You can see what we're looking at as Dave zooms in on that thing.
Okay, you know, we have Officer Gina Holstrom of LAPD's Wilshire Division who's been on our beeper phone here for the last few minutes. Why don't we go to her now? Officer Holstrom, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
What can you tell us? Where are you right now, ma'am?
Well, I'm at home watching the broadcast, and in particular, I wanted to address your question of the LAPD's lack of initial response to this looting and violence.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just very concerned, and I wanted to assure the public that LAPD didn't go into hiding. We weren't trying to avoid the situation, that it's a very volatile situation. You've got a large group of people, and that until we can form a plan and get out there, probably our presence is going to hurt the matter more than it is going to help it.
Well, that's what we were speculating earlier, is that your police department might have been trying to let the earlier demonstration at that first intersection kind of cool off and lose steam on its own before you went in, and try not to inflame it by going in and being confrontational. Is that the idea?
That's the idea. Normally, the general rule of thumb with the LAPD is you want to either equal the amount of suspects or outnumber them. And obviously in this situation it's going to be impossible. We just don't have enough officers to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to try and come as close to that as we can. And I think that if you send, you know, 1 squad car or 2 or 3 or 4 squad cars in a situation where you've got a group of people, you're going to have, you know, possibly an even more violent confrontation.
Officer Holstrom, we assume then that this response was pre-planned. I know that there was a response plan in the works, and we assume that this is exactly what was planned in case this sort of thing happened.
Oh yeah, you know, we have a set of procedures, an emergency operation guide that we go by and that we constantly train for. But the magnitude of this is just unbelievable. And with 8,000 officers, you just can't even start to, you know, cover the whole thing. It's overwhelming.
Give us a sense of how many of those officers would be on duty right now. How do you work that? Are you going to be called in? Are people going to be called in to work overtime? I assume they are.
Well, as they mentioned before, the department is divided up into 2 shifts, the A shift and the B shift. They're 12-hour shifts. I'll be going in tomorrow at 6 in the morning, and I'll work till 6 at night. These officers that you see on TV will go off duty at 6 in the morning, and they'll be called back in at 6 p.m. That day. Now, as far as the detectives and the people that work non-uniform jobs, I'm not quite sure how they work that. Although we do have 8,000 officers, those aren't the amount of officers that are going to be available to actually man squad cars and go out and patrol the streets. It's going to be a lot less.
Were any vacations or days off canceled with this coming up this week?
Well, I'm on a day off tomorrow, so that kind of answers your question. As far as vacations, I don't know about that.
But you will be going in on your day off.
Oh, absolutely.
We wish you luck.
Thank you.
And
we do.
Thank you very much for calling and explaining to us what was going on.
You're welcome.
Officer Gina Holstrom from LAPD's Worcester Division. We are in her debt for calling and answering some of the questions we were asking on the air. A couple of things briefly. There's a landmark shopping center for more than 3 decades at the corner of La Brea and Rodeo Drive, anchored by a large thrifty drugstore. It is on fire. That's not the one you're seeing now, I don't think. It's being danger of being destroyed. Captain Ron, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Paul.
That's not that location there, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay. And also the Chief Administrative Officer, Richard Dixon, has declared a state of emergency in Los Angeles County. He said after conferring with Sheriff Sherman Block and Supervisor Dean Dana, he issued the declaration. He also requested that Governor Pete Wilson place the National Guard on alert status. That, according to a sheriff spokesman. We assume that is going to be...
Want to see some looters?
We assume, yes, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, look right here.
I don't know whether you were talking to us, Ron, or not, but...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just a little bit west of this fire, we've got a whole bunch of looters that is occurring at the ABC Market again. And you'll see these guys just running in and out, loading up their cars and driving off.
Is this the same ABC Market we watched being looted a couple hours ago?
No, this is another one. We're actually about 5 miles north of that location. We're actually, maybe 2 miles south of the Civic Center at this time, and we're east of the Harbor Freeway. However, the same thing is occurring at this one as it was in the one that we were looking at 5 miles south from here. And you can see people are just absolutely going crazy as they go in here and steal from it. Just south of this location, all of the area is blacked out. There's no lights out here. The electricity is out. For some reason, the lights are on in that market, and people are going in and helping themselves to that stuff.
I hardly think these are people that are in their own way trying to protest the verdicts against the officers accused of beating Rodney King, Ron.
That could be, Paul. That could be.
No, I hardly think. I think these are people that, as we've talked all night, see an opportunity. Hey, look what's on television.
That's right.
Let's go do something. And I'm not trying to indict any of them. I just have that feeling.
But when you think about what this is going to do to these neighborhoods, it is tragic for more than just the loss that will be suffered by a company, although the many businesses that will be put under here because of losing buildings and losing goods is something. But what about these neighborhoods now? If these stores close up and don't come back, what happens to the people who live in these neighborhoods and now have to travel even further to get to a store?
It's really a shame, isn't it, Ann? And you notice as we're watching this thing, we can actually see people drive into the parking lot. We'll watch them run in and ride out. I mean, they'll pick up their stuff, put it in their car, and go. And this is happening just at this moment while we're watching this. Now, we also are watching as we've got some foot traffic. I think Dave can pick that up. You'll see that guy right in the center of your screen running across, running right into the store, getting what he's after, and then coming out.
Well, you know, John North said it very well a few minutes ago, Ron. He said that these people, and I assume if they live in, they're really helping destroy their own neighborhood.
That's true, Paul.
Economically, spiritually, morally, in every way. That's what they're doing.
It's really sad, isn't it, Paul?
And you know, you stop and think, this sort of thing, this looting business happens anytime that there's a perceived breakdown in law and order, or the perception that there's so much going on that the police won't be able to get and touch you. It happens during major earthquakes. It happens during all kinds of major disasters where there's always one caliber of people who goes in and takes advantage of the situation and makes it worse for everybody.
It has happened on the scene of plane crashes, where people
Even
go in
plane
and loot
crashes.
dead bodies.
Right, right. It's sickening, but we're watching it in action right now in our country, and it's a phenomenon that happens around the world.
All right, Henry Alfaro's at our command center. Henry, come on in. Henry Alfaro.
Yes.
Go ahead.
This is called the Crenshaw Town Center, what's left of it right now. We've had fires burning out of control. That building has been completely demolished, or completely burned down, you might say. Every building along this area has been either broken into or has been gutted by fire. On the other side, as we go along here, we see Thrifties. It seems relatively okay, but it's hard to say. Right behind us here is a boys' market. You can see litter everywhere. Obviously, it was looted. Surprisingly, it's still standing. The fires haven't hit it. But the buildings over to the right of it, as well as to the left, have all been broken into. There's litter throughout this entire shopping center. It's a huge complex. There's about 10 fire trucks right now, and right across the street, there's another fire that's going down. And from the looks of it, right across the street, it's completely burned down. A lot of people are out in this area right now. We saw looting everywhere coming up on Vernon, I guess it was, that we came up on. Liquor stores, stores of all kind. It's just been an impossible task for the Los Angeles City, as well as county fire departments, that literally all hell is breaking loose in this part of the city. As I mentioned, the boys' market completely ransacked. Right now with us is one of the public information officers of the fire department. Your name, please.
Brian Jordan.
What do we see here, Brian? What's the extent?
Basically what we have is, looks like almost total destruction of several businesses. We have 5 engine companies on scene. They couldn't move in right away because they had to wait for a police escort. When the units got here, they had the police come first. The police units are here in SWAT gear protecting the firefighters, and they have had a couple bottles thrown at the police officers. We do have a fire across the street, and we have units that are going over there right now to attempt to knock that one down. The boys' market here on our left. Yeah. Apparently somebody tried to start a fire there, and they had fire sprinklers. The fire sprinklers knocked that fire down. Boys' market's still here.
How long has all of these fires been going on?
I'm not sure when the fire started. I believe it was earlier this evening. These fires here obviously progressed for a while. We can't actually move into the area until we have adequate police escort.
Was it tough getting in here?
It was tough getting in. We had people blocking hydrants. We had firefighters attempting to connect hose to the hydrants, and did have rocks or bottles thrown at them. The police did take care of that problem.
Any injuries for fire department officials?
None on this scene. I'm not sure with the other scenes. We have no injuries here at Crenshaw and Slauson.
Well, again, the Crenshaw Town Center completely demolished. As they mentioned that the fire was attempted over here at the boys' market. The sprinkler systems went on, but this is really a destruction zone. Nothing is left. Fires here right behind me, fires across the street. As was indicated, that there were problems of the fire department getting in here because they were being threatened. The only way that they could come in here was through police escort, as well as members of the SWAT unit who are still standing by. So a terrible scene, a war zone, you might say. Very little is going to be left of this place, and unfortunately there's going to be a lot of people, the business people that provide the various types of services to the community here. It's going to be the community that really suffers in the end. A lot of anger, of course, and a lot of destruction. Reporting live from the Crenshaw Town Center, I'm Henry Alfaro. Back to you.
Henry, can you hear me?
Pardon?
Can you hear me? It's Ann.
Yes.
What is the street location of the Crenshaw Town Center? What are the cross streets there where you are?
The cross streets are Crenshaw and Slauson.
Okay.
Crenshaw and Slauson. I might add that all along Crenshaw, there have been additional fires and reports of additional lootings. We were on our way over to the South Bureau of the LAPD when we spotted this, and we stopped off, and here you have this pathetic and tragic
terrible
scene.
You know, we had a news bulletin here that one other landmark shopping center that's been for more than 3 decades at the corner of La Brea and Rodeo. That shopping center there with a large thrifty store was on fire, and that would be, I guess, just a little west of where you are.
Yes.
And so we've got 2 major shopping centers going up in flames then.
2 major shopping centers, the fire department reporting 31 fires up to this moment, 100 other emergency calls, looting and burning of shopping centers. We have an update on injuries and fatalities. The first fatality was a man killed by gunfire. A hospital spokesman, that Daniel Freeman, I believe, says at least 4 other people are in critical condition. One is the truck driver who was pulled from his truck and beaten by rioters in south central Los Angeles.
The other person who was killed
tonight.
apparently was a person who had also been pulled out of a car and sustained enough trauma injury that he or she was killed.
Pulled out
also.
of a car or jumped or fell, I'm not sure.
Something like that, yes.
The police department, we are told now, is facing a crisis situation. Tonight is asking reserve officers to call their stations. All line reserve and technical reserve officers asked to call their respective stations. That, according to a police spokesman, Sharon Michelson. Michelson said officials hope the media would help to get the word out. We're doing our part. All line reserve and technical reserve officers asked to call their respective stations immediately.
Now we're looking at the picture of a shopping area burning, and we've been watching fires burning all night. We have been on the air for 5 hours, and we began just before 7 o'clock with the happenings at that one intersection. And as night fell, we began to see these fires, and they continue and continue, and we have, I think we have at least 40 of them at this point. Most of the ones we've seen have burned right down to their foundations and have been left a bed of glowing ash on top of whatever foundation they had. The city is in a state of chaos, really, a state of emergency called by the mayor tonight. National Guard's supposed to be en route, and we've been told that the Governor Wilson may be addressing us live here sometime within the next half hour.
I would suspect that's going to come pretty soon, and I would also suspect that he will make it official and the National Guard will be sent in, because this does not look like it's getting better. It looks like it's getting worse, at least in terms of the number of fires that we are seeing.
Well,
we thought we were going to come down here at 7 o'clock and do an hour on the verdict and go home. How wrong we were.
We've heard from at least one family that lives in the area where these fires have been burning for this evening, and a gentleman who came in from Colorado, I believe he said. He was not a native Angelino, and he said that he was basically very upset, and he had 2 little girls who were unable to go to sleep tonight, and he wasn't quite sure what to tell them about what was happening, but there were people running in the streets, there were fire department trucks going by, there was sirens, there was fires around him, looting and all kinds of horror going on around him, and he was sitting in his house wondering what in the world was going on and feeling, as he should feel, very unsafe tonight.
And he
Sad
obviously
situation
represents the majority of people in Southern California and the majority of people in that area. There was no question about it. We heard from an LAPD officer from the Wilshire Division. She was kind enough to call in about 10 minutes ago and explain to us why the LAPD waited. She explained to us what the procedure is, what their, as she knew it, what their plans were, and why they did not respond immediately to that first incident. She said that they've got to have at least as many officers as there are suspects, and I believe that they were walking that thin line. If we respond, will it incite more violence? If we don't respond, will it spread? It's a tough place to be in if you're making those calls.
It's especially tough because you can't say, oh, it's only going to be happening in this part of town. There have been problems at Foothill. There have been problems in Boyle Heights that we at least had reference to here in the wire copy that's been coming in. Problems in the Civic Center. Reports of problems in Westwood. We've got shopping centers burning at La Brea and Rodeo, and at Crenshaw and Slauson, and spot fires breaking out all over town. Just an unending list of hot spots and trouble spots, and you can only spread yourself so thin. You can't be everywhere at once. It's a very dangerous time for the city.
This ordinarily, and you can see it when you're coming in on an airliner from the east over the city of Los Angeles and the basin, and you're landing toward the west. And it's a beautiful sight at night with the lights twinkling and the traffic and the cars and the headlights. Can you imagine what it looks like now?
Well, remember, we had word that they were trying to divert some of the air traffic around the city because the smoke. Now, this was a couple hours ago.